Good morning, everybody. We're here at Capella on Sentosa for Campaign360. Our agenda this year is the future of media, and I'm very fortunate to have Joe Flint, Managing Director, Agency Business, APAC at Google. So thanks for joining us, Joe.
Very welcome.
You were just on stage, a panel that I was in. It was extremely interesting to talk about, not being left behind and what are the things that agencies, brands, advertisers, and platforms need to do, keep up with today's, or I say today, the future of media. I particularly enjoyed that you sort of had it down pretty sharp to three key areas that you were talking about, which were sort of technology, talent, and business models. So I thought we'd go through what you had to say there and say, why don't we start with technology and where you think people should be and where we should be looking?
Sure. So I think the big thing around technology, whether you're on the agency side or the advertiser side, is it's impacting everything that we do. And so the key thing that we're looking at is really around strategies and helping clients and our agencies decide, to what extent is this proprietary and a huge kind of competitive advantage to them versus it be kind of, table stakes.
Yeah.
So that kind of drives strategies around, do I build this or do I partner or buy?
Yeah.
And I think those are the kind of decisions that every single organization needs to make in order to be able to then decide who is it they partner with, who else do they run their RFPs with, do they bring things in-house, do they outsource, again, depending on which side of the fence that you're actually sitting. So I think that whole strategy around technology is really around, do I build or do I buy? And it really comes down to not just thinking about it from a media buying perspective, but looking at ad tech and martech and CRM and looking at the whole of that kind of data backbone that the organizations are building for. And to what extent that's core to your business and therefore is a competitive advantage, or you figure that it's something that's outsourced, or a hybrid of the two, which is actually what we're seeing in most cases. So I think it's really important to kind of have a point of view on that, and I think that's the starting point on the technology side.
Well, yeah, because I imagine that's very personal to each brand and each business, right? Because you're going to have so much budget or so much size or so much or certain priorities around your technology, and we talk a lot and hear a lot about sort of brands sort of taking those things in-house, and that can be quite an investment and quite a commitment. So I guess are they the kind of conversations you're having? Because obviously you guys are leaders in the field. Is that what people want to know about, where it is that they should be outsourcing and having partners, and where it is that they should be maybe taking ownership?
So I think what we've got to do is we've got to look at the whole of the advertising ecosystem here, or the advertiser ecosystem, and we spend a lot of time here talking about, the top sort of 50 advertisers, the top 100 advertisers. There are hundreds of thousands of businesses, millions of businesses for that matter, that are today needing some level of marketing services. And so there's a huge white space opportunity, and more of those businesses are coming online as we speak, particularly as we're starting to see consumers hitting that $3,000 spending mark in terms of household income in emerging markets like Indonesia and in India. That suddenly unlocks a whole new consumer audience, which creates an opportunity for existing brands and new models. So I think against that, there is a role for technology at every single stage, whether you're a mum and pup shop and you're wanting to just do sort of transactions and just trying to get and connect and have your email database or your SMS database and be able to communicate with your existing customers, through to just being able to locate where you are, for example, the tools that we're creating for small to medium businesses, just helping them to get online is really important, and educating and getting out into those developing communities. This is as important as what we're doing at the head of the business with highly sophisticated advertisers who are changing their business models, looking at data in different ways, resegmenting their audiences, changing and moving to dynamic pricing. For example, the airline industry is doing that already. And I think what we have to do is understand that technology has a role to play across all of it. It's created the opportunities that we're discussing, and what the job is then is for the agencies to identify what role do they play in servicing those different segments. And I think the great thing about today is that they can go beyond just their existing customer base that they've built their organizations on now to expand into new areas. So, as some of these small to medium businesses are coming out, retailers, they're looking for point services that they can get help in. So as long as those agencies are equipped with those tools, then they can actually then service them and help.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think we can be guilty, as in the media, who, of getting sort of sucked into those top 50, top 100 advertisers, to all the amazing and shiny new things, as you say, the guys and brands that are leading the field are doing. But there is, particularly in this part of the world, a huge SME community that is maybe not as sophisticated, or certainly wouldn't be as your top advertisers, and there must be so much that they can learn from even sort of relatively simple technological adaptations that could improve their businesses.
Absolutely, and I think what we have to do is provide and develop service models that can address all of those different segment needs. So ultimately, as head of the agency business for Google for Asia, my focus is to make sure that we understand what are the advertisers' needs across that full spectrum. And then for us to kind of, I guess, decide to develop both a servicing model as well as a technology solutions to help our partners go after those opportunities. So today we're discussing with our agencies different ways in which they may actually address not just the devil they know, but the devil they don't. And I think that's a huge opportunity. So, everyone's gloom and doom because everyone's focusing in that in the past with where the media dollar swell and focus was. But that is distributed now. And we didn't talk about this and have the chance to talk about it on stage because it still was focused to the head. But to me, when I look at agencies today, I love watching these startup agencies that didn't exist before, that have been born out of this region, that have identified a customer need or a marketing need, and they've just got up and they've gone after it. And they've said, you know what, we're going to help them with their KOL strategies, or we're going to help them with creating videos for YouTube, and we're going to help set up their AdWords account alongside getting their on business set up and their maps and their location services. And those kind of things are just really basic things that we can do. And I think, our job is to support that whole ecosystem so that we're an open door to help them get what they want. But it also requires us to adapt. And that, I guess, is the ongoing challenge, which leads to the second point about talent.
Well, I was going to say,
how do we adapt?
You're saying you talk a lot about technology, a lot out there, obviously. Then there's, in terms of that adaptation, talent, right? You need the right people doing the right things in the right culture. And I think, you talked a lot about talent inside, and I thought what you had to say was very important. What is it that, Google is known as a company with this, that prides itself on having a core culture that people, want to be part of? And what would you say in terms of, from that perspective, for other organisations, agencies, brands, in terms of the talent they bring in to grow their business? There's
different aspects to this. One is around acquiring talent. There's also about upskilling talent, and there's also then creating a culture where talent can flourish. On the acquisition side, that is definitely the media industry needs to do a better job of attracting potentially top talent and future talent. I think the kind of increasingly what you're looking for in the media industry is talent that high potential talent that really maybe is up until now gone into finance or into consulting or to others. So how do you create a different entry path into what is potentially is ultimately a data organisation or technology organisation with a particular specialism around media? Like, how do you actually attract that? And there's work that we've done, which I mentioned earlier, around trying to at least focus on some sweet spots. So we did a joint program with the industry, with our media partners, where we worked with some top educational establishments in the Singapore government. It was called Squared Data. And what we did was we tried to attract a top talent into a very deep educational program into data and analytics. And we trained them on our site. So I had the Google brand there. But what we did was the on-the-job learning was placement into agencies. So you actually had agencies now having to mentor, and they had to step up. So they're mentoring, they're equipping their partners, these talent with different ways and real use cases to prove actually this is a new way in which we can work. And so the result of it is we've seen agencies, big agency networks on the back of this. We're not talking about, unfortunately, this is a subscale program, but where we've deployed it, we've seen agencies actually build analytics practices to the point of now developing innovation practices. So we are seeing in 3-4 years, we've put into the market probably 125 top graduates that would have otherwise gone into financial services or consulting, have gone into the media industry, and these are future leaders. And they are driving, and they're generating value from the get-go, and they're on an accelerated trajectory in this industry, and they're adding a fresh perspective and a fresh, diverse skill set. So that's kind of one example. But I think more broadly, the key thing is that organisations need to kind of solve for two things, whether it's a startup or whether it's a big multinational. The first one is around the culture / the purpose of the organisation. What is this company here to do? And I think with our vision and our purpose, giving. That's attract my team here was really challenged. Why do we? And I just said, we are here to transform the way agencies deliver client value in a digital world. We're here to help them on their transformation and how they can deliver more client value.
That's pretty lofty again, though.
And so then I'm then going, so why are you doing that? If it doesn't deliver against that vision, why are you doing it? What is the client value around that? And I think it's getting them to kind of just elevate again what you're trying to do. So that's one area, that spirit. And once you have a purpose and a vision, then the next piece is around activating that.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of that, I think, comes down to creating an environment which is obviously not hierarchical.
Yeah.
Big companies struggle with organizational decision making.
That's not new, right? That's not just media agencies.
It's a universal issue. But what you have to do is trust your people. You have to trust that they can get it right, and you can trust that they can make the right decisions. So, giving them the enough rope to take those risks and to get them to go out and try. And what I call it is a culture of experimentation, which is, do you know what? 70% you know what you're going to do, 20% you're kind of tinkering, 10% just experiment and try it out.
Yeah.
But we like to call this projects that are kind of safe to fail projects.
Right. Yeah.
Things that we're going to try, but they're safe to fail. Yeah. And if they fail, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
And I think if you can create that balance, then people genuinely, and they've got a mission that people want, people will come to you no matter whether you're a media agency or whether you're running a retailer. It doesn't matter. You've got to stand for something. And in this world, it's all about having that. And that's the home of marketing, having a purpose in marketing
yourself. Well, that's it, right? Yeah, and it's
Let's go back to basics.
Well, that's it. I think a lot of what you're talking about is, having the talent is one thing, but empowering them to have that kind of, or opportunity and ownership of something where they can safely fail at something or try and experiment. And I think that's some of what we were talking about in there. Is I think there's a bit of an aversion to risk, and it's great to have invest in your talent or hire new talent, and then to sort of put them in a sort of limited role where they can't flourish in a way that demonstrates all the reasons you hired them seems kind of somewhat paradoxical.
It's all about mindset. And I'm incredibly privileged to be amongst an organisation that really likes to encourage risk-taking to a point.
Yes, of course,
but the culture, I guess, hopefully a culture of what I would say is expansive thinking, which is a crazy idea, probably isn't a crazy idea, and being inclusive around letting those ideas. So it can't be, we have to acknowledge that ideas come from everywhere, and we need to be prepared to fail. And those are kind of radically different organizational tuning to the way a lot of organizations run, particularly in Asia where it's command and control.
Absolutely,
And I think that you need to create emergent ideas, and you need to give every person a voice. So there's some cultural dimensions here which are challenging, which is why I think you see so many startups doing such a great job.
Yeah.
Because they're coming from nowhere, they stand for something. I love Grab. Grab's a great story.
Yeah.
They've come, they came up with huge purpose, and they've created this culture, they've created this real sort of regional, local, very clear about winning in cities, winning every city, one city at a time. And it's so focused and so clear and so objective oriented, and they really execute flawlessly. And I think that's the big shift as well, is letting the teams get from planning into execution. They want to do.
Yeah. It's all great to look at PowerPoints and what have you, and then have the big idea, and then you're like, right, now let's go and do this thing. Now we're reining us in.
Let's try it.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Problem. There was just one last bit, which was sort of business models, which was something that was a lot of ongoing discussion, really. I think it's around that argument of what does marketing mean to businesses or media more specifically as well. And I think there's a lot more that media agencies and partners have that they can bring a lot more to the table perhaps than some people think they can.
I think the biggest thing we have to do, and it's another marketing effort, is to shift marketing, particularly where margins are tight, from it being a cost to it being an investment.
Okay.
And just by shifting that narrative to investment enables you to get into the conversations around measurement.
Yeah.
And how do we measure the impact of what we do? So this is linked also to execution, but how do you take, how is this actually helping really drive my brand equity in a market? How is it helping me increase my market share if I'm an advertiser? Which is if I have a finite budget, where do I prioritize where my budget should go? And being able to use the information, using the experimental cultures to really start to inform these new decisions and dynamic decisions in some ways. So for me, the business model piece then is around demanding, particularly as an advertiser, that agencies to be highly accountable.
Okay, yeah.
And dare I say, take some shared risk.
Yes.
So the extent to which you're just paying an agency on a percentage commission, which obviously we're long past that, but on a time and materials basis where you're just paying them for man hours, then what you're essentially saying is I just need to increase my headcount in order to grow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the counter to what you really should be doing, which is I should be unlocking your budgets if I deliver value to you. And how I do that, hopefully using automation and changing the value dimension and that currency of exchange, creates a huge opportunity. And so I think the agencies that are going to do really well in the future are going to start to experiment with those new models.
Okay.
So highly accountable models, very measurable, but very outcome driven, and putting essentially the partner and the marketing agency hand in hand with the client themselves, so they're a continuum of the same problem, not a wall between the two that's being totally degraded and dare I say challenged and a race to the bottom by letting price be the indicator. It should be a value conversation, not a cost conversation, and that is the shift we have to help agencies navigate to. The challenge is it's retooling and organizations, but what you'll see is new players are going to come in and show you the way. So I think what's encouraging is that there will be new models that will emerge. There'll be some movement of accounts, no doubt, but what over time you'll see is we'll be smarter, we'll be more agile, and I think the value equation between the agency and the advertiser will be second to none. And I think that is the role, and for us as Google, our role is to support that value exchange and really understand the needs of the advertiser, the role of the agency, and where Google can add value to that process: education, talent, tech, all the things we talked about. And that is a moving feast.
But that's an ongoing process, surely, and then in the whole ecosystem really that needs to change. Brilliant, Jo. Thanks very much for your time. It's been a really good chat.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks very much for having me here.